That's a great question. And I would like to answer it in a way that it really resonates with most of the people, right? So it's actually a mix of both. And it has to be a healthy mix of both, right? So, a personal desire for me to keep learning has always been there, right? I am usually very unsettled if I feel that there is something which I'm supposed to do and supposed to know and I do not know, right? So I keep learning for my own personal satisfaction of keeping, continuing my learning process. And also kind of I'm very inquisitive. I keep asking a lot of questions and exploring the answers and learning the required concepts or technology behind answering those questions, right? On the other side, right, if there had not been any opportunities for me to apply these learnings, right, these learnings would have eventually faded, and I would have lost the motivation to learn. So, therefore, it's equally important that I get these opportunities at my workplace, and beyond to apply what I learn, and that has been happening quite consistently over the past several years, because there have been umpteen opportunities, as you rightly stated, given the changing state of things, the changing dynamics, all the technology and advancements, etc. There are a lot of areas where I could apply all the skills that I learned, right? And I kept honing on my skills, right? And then continued my desire to learn more, right? So it's a healthy mix of both, I would rather say. It's There's going to be a tremendous amount of impact, right, as I could guess, because we are going through a typical revolution, an AI revolution, right? And any revolution has the potential to bring a lot of transformation, right? So this AI revolution is also going to completely, at least if not completely, to a large extent, transform the skill requirements of future. Because if you think about it, it's about AI development, AI application, and sustainment, right? And all of these, and then there is an underpinning requirement to kind of of being ethical, being responsible, right? And working within the constraints of data security and privacy, right? So if you look at each of these building blocks, there are multiple areas where there is going to be an explosion of the skill requirement, right? So starting from the fundamental or the foundational with respect to data engineering, right? And platforms, right? So there's going to be an explosion there in terms of the number of data engineers and platform architects that we might require. And of course, there is going to be an explosion in the area of the AI skills that are required, right? Because we are talking about not just machine learning and artificial intelligence, but we are talking about generative AI now, right? The large language models, Chat GPT, and all of that, right? So these are areas where things are dynamically changing, and there is a lot of potential, right, in terms of incremental skill requirement, right? Another area which I touched upon was kind of the application side, right? So it's not only enough to develop these applications, these technologies, but also to find ways and means of applying that in solving real world problems. So we need people to bridge that gap, right? Or we need people to understand the technology thoroughly, and merge that with the ground, the real problems that could be solved through these technologies, right? So this is another area which is going to explode. And as I mentioned, now there's a heavy focus on ethical AI, responsible AI, right? And there's a lot of focus around securing our data, securing our infrastructure, etc. So these areas are also going to create a lot of jobs, and there's going to be a lot of demand in terms of skills. Yeah, that's a very ubiquitous question, which I hear from my team and my colleagues. That how do we catch up with this generative AI advancements, right? So I think I would rather say that start from the foundation, right? And even before that, assess where you are, right, with respect to machine learning, with respect to artificial intelligence, and all of the data and analytics concepts, right? And then accordingly, everyone should kind of design a forward-looking plan, right? So, assuming that somebody does not know anything about data and analytics yet, they want to kind of pursue a career towards generative AI, so they have to start with very foundation, which is understanding the foundational concepts of data and analytics, right? The statistics, the engineering, and the science behind it, right? And then after they have got a complete grasp of data and analytics and the various concepts of that in machine learning or deep learning and all of that, they can look at upskilling themselves in generative AI, right? Generative AI is a subset of deep learning where these systems, what we call it as Chat GPT or any of these generative AI systems, they generate human like outputs, right? So that's a subset of the deep learning profession. So a deep learning area. So what they could do after they have understood the foundational artificial intelligence is to kind of get themselves upscaled and how generative AI is different from the rest of the artificial intelligence. What are the building blocks of that, right? In terms of neural networks and the various aspects of neural networks that are the foundational blocks of this generative AI, right? And then kind of after learning the theoretical part of all of this, right, they could switch over to kind of the practical part or applying what they have learned to solve problems, right? So they need to look for opportunities where they can deploy generative AI skills in order to kind of solve problems, right? The real world problems in their companies, in their industries, etc., right? And through that application, of course, they can harden their concepts around the generative AI, and at the same time they can they can create value to their organization, right? And when I say this, they can approach a lot of these SaaS solutions which are offering foundational models which could be tuned, right, in order to kind of be very specific to various applications, right? So AWS or Azure, all and Google, all of these have got very, very useful and powerful foundational models, and they could be tweaked for, say, for example, solving pharma-related problems, which is like accelerating drug discovery. They could be fine-tuned to solve any problems related to healthcare, like identifying diseases faster, right? And in cybersecurity, right? So the right kind of applications and the right kind of SaaS platform and the foundational model have to be chosen in order to kind of solve those problems. So this is the third focus that they should have after learning the theory and the foundation, right? And of course, the fourth focus they should have is like, once they have created these systems, assuming, right, how do they make them ethical? How do they take care of make them responsible? How do they take care of concerns like data security and privacy? Whom do they contact, or do they have to set up a dedicated team for that, right? And how do they sustain, right? So after developing these systems, right, these are heavy investments, right? They need to be scalable, right? So how do we scale these up? How do we kind of sustain the benefit that we have generated out of this, right? So I think these 4 or 5 blocks they should think about when they are planning their career with generative AI. They should be wary of the power of generative AI, but there's no need to curtail its use as long as we are very mindful about where we are using it, right? And we are and with awareness of all the issues that we might face, right? So the very first part of your question was, should we be worried, or should we be wary of the Chat GPT? Yes, we should be. We should be at least aware of all the shortcomings of Chat GPT, right? So Chat GPT is not a perfect solution yet, right? It is still having problem occasionally with respect to staying, of being relevant in the answers, right? And giving a very good, coherent, high quality answers, right? So there is still some bit of an issue there. It has not been tested completely for for whether it is propagating a responsible AI, right? It is it's not propagating false information, right? So that's very important, right? We are talking about deep fakes. We are talking about Chat GPT replicating people's appearance and voice, right? So these are the areas where stricter controls are yet to be built, right? So this is another shortcoming. Another shortcoming is the data privacy issues, right? So Chat GPT, like any other large language model, is built on lot of data, right? And that could contain proprietary information, personal information, and all, right? So there is a huge data privacy and security concern there, which also needs to be addressed. Another thing which might not be coming much in the mainstream yet, it is a significant concern, is the amount of energy consumption that happens behind training these models, right? There's a huge amount of water footprint that is left behind because of the heavy processing which is happening in the data centers to kind of train these huge models, right? So there are these ethical, security, and environmental concerns which have to be taken care of very quickly if we were to kind of use the generative AI or Chat GPT for widespread applications. Now, coming to the second part of your question, we can still, given these shortcomings, we can still find areas like in education, like in farming, etc., where the risk of all of these shortcomings is not very serious, right? It doesn't manifest itself very seriously, right? So in such areas, we can still think of bringing significant amount of value through Chat GPT. But in areas like cybersecurity or healthcare, right, where the risks are high of Chat GPT going wrong, there we should, I think, wait for a little while before we choose to apply Chat GPT or any generative AI. Right. So I'll touch upon the advantages first, right, before I go into the mechanics of how could we create data literate organization, right? So advantages are many, right? Literally many, right? So one thing is it'll drive a culture of making good decision making on data, right? Making good decisions based on data rather than intuitions or hearsays or assumptions, right? So any data driven decision making, right, would ensure that decisions are correct and they lead to accurate results, right? So this is very, very important, right? Otherwise there will be issues related to some kind of a bias, right? All of us have got biases, right? Unless that is confirmed or not by data, if we make assumptions or decisions on those biases, the decisions are likely to be wrong. So the cultural shift from intuitive decision making to factual decision making is one thing. Another thing is, in general, right, making decisions based on data is going to ensure that organizations are moving towards excellence. They are achieving their goals in a much accelerated way, right? And the operations can be optimized, right? And the organizations can have very good competitive advantage by having a complete knowledge of their market, about their customers, and acting accordingly, making decisions accordingly, right? So from a business excellence angle as well, making decisions, or a data literate organization is going to really be super helpful. Another one is, it can increase cross-functional collaboration, right? And that also is going to kind of impact the efficiency of an organization, right? And how well they are able to kind of deliver to their customers. Because, if the functions, they operate in silo, right, without any interaction or collaboration or an interchange based on data, then there will be a lot of time spent on achieving an optimal solution or an optimal product, right? So a data literate organization naturally is highly collaborative between the cross multiple functions, right? And that obviously will increase the efficiency. So there are a lot of these tangible benefits due to data literacy. And how we can do it is kind of having very conscious and deliberate attempt at ensuring that our people, they know the power of data, and we kind of inculcate that habit that every time a decision needs to be made, people look for facts, people look for data and insights, right, rather than kind of making decision on assumptions or intuitions, right? So that kind of a culture has to come top down, right? The leadership has to push that across the organization. Beyond this cultural shift and the shift in the thought process, we have to upskill the team in consuming the insights, right, that are generated out of that data. And of course, we are talking about self-service a lot across the organizations, right? So if even in the leadership level, we would require people to know very foundational aspects of self-service using data. So that is kind of another cultural shift. And the third thing is to kind of create that ecosystem of usable and high quality data, right? And the entire infrastructure wherein, it's easy to access the data and easy to consume it, and we can trust that data, that it is of high quality, and any decision that we make out of that data is going to be correct, right? So this is the third aspect, which is very important to create a accessible, usable, and trustworthy data ecosystem.